In the Carpathian Mountains of 17th century Hungary, a name echoed with fear: Elizabeth Báthory. A woman of nobility and unmatched cruelty, she would go down in history not for her status, but for the rivers of blood spilled under her command. Stories of her bathing in virgin's blood for eternal youth have haunted centuries of folklore. But beneath the legend lies horrifying truth. With over 600 victims to her name, her crimes defy imagination. Step inside Cactus Castle and witness the chilling descent of a noblewoman into darkness. This is the terrifying legacy of the Blood Countess. Born in 1560 into one of Hungary's most powerful families, Elizabeth Báthory's life began in privilege and power. But her childhood was shaped by brutality. Surrounded by violent punishments, torture, and political conflict, she developed a twisted view of life and death. From seizures to possible mental illness, some say her mind was fractured early. Her relatives believed in black magic and cruelty, which she witnessed firsthand. This dark environment shaped a mind capable of great evil, long before she ever entered a torture chamber. Elizabeth Báthory didn't become a monster overnight. She was molded by noble blood and violence. At just 15, Elizabeth married Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a powerful military leader known as the Black Knight of Hungary. Their union brought immense political influence, but also darker teachings. Ferenc introduced her to brutal battlefield punishments: impalement, starvation, mutilation. Though away at war often, he ensured Elizabeth had absolute control at home. With the help of loyal but cruel servants, she began experimenting with torture, starting with servants and peasants. Behind the castle's stone walls, her sadism grew. This marriage wasn't one of love. It was a union of blood, power, and the seeds of a reign of terror yet to come. When Ferenc died in 1604, Elizabeth became the sole ruler of the estate, and her cruelty flourished. With no husband to restrain her, she assumed full command of the castle and its many servants. What began as isolated punishments turned into systematic torture. Girls were lured to the castle under the promise of jobs, but many never returned. Elizabeth's methods became more inventive and horrifying. She now had the power, the privacy, and the resources to pursue her darkest desires. As a widow, she was unstoppable, and her transformation into one of history's worst female killers had truly begun. Elizabeth believed blood could preserve her beauty. When a servant girl accidentally pulled her hair while brushing it, Elizabeth slapped her so hard blood hit her skin. She thought it made her look younger. That moment sparked a horrifying obsession. She began torturing and killing young girls, biting their flesh, cutting their bodies, and eventually bathing in their blood. Her chambers became torture rooms where screams echoed for hours. The more she killed, the younger she believed she became. For Elizabeth, blood wasn't just power. It was beauty, immortality, and the ultimate luxury her noble status could provide. Elizabeth wasn't alone in her crimes. She had a group of loyal servants, Anna Darvulia, Ilona Jo, and others, who helped her find, lure, and torture the girls. Some were promised riches. Others feared her wrath. These accomplices carried out her cruelest instructions, burning victims with heated coins, sewing mouths shut, and breaking bones. They disposed of corpses, buried remains, and kept silent about the horrors inside the castle. In exchange for loyalty, they shared power and protection. With her network in place, Elizabeth's cruelty became efficient. What once was personal madness had now become an organized system of slaughter. Over the years, the number of victims grew. Some say she murdered over 600 girls, though official records confirmed around 80. The victims were mostly peasant girls, but eventually, daughters of nobles began disappearing too. This mistake would cost her everything. Some girls tried to escape and described underground chambers filled with mutilated bodies. Villagers grew suspicious. People spoke of carts filled with blood-soaked straw leaving the castle. The whispers turned into accusations. The nobility began to take notice. And the name Blood Countess began to spread beyond local villages, becoming a terrifying legend across Hungary and beyond. Rumors became undeniable. Priests, villagers, and even other nobles began reporting Elizabeth's crimes. A Lutheran minister accused her publicly in church. Still, her status protected her, until King Matthias II himself ordered an investigation. Eyewitnesses described horrific scenes: girls chained to walls, frozen naked in snow, burned with oil. Testimonies from over 300 people were gathered. With so many voices speaking against her, silence was no longer an option. Elizabeth's protective wall of influence began to crumble. The world was about to see what truly lurked inside Cactus Castle, and the horrors Elizabeth Báthory had tried so hard to hide. On December 30th, 1610, Count György Thurzó stormed Cactus Castle with soldiers. They discovered a fresh corpse, tortured girls still alive, and a trail of blood that led through the chambers. Elizabeth was caught in the middle of it, calm, cold, and unrepentant. Her accomplices were arrested and later executed after brutal interrogations. Elizabeth herself was too noble to be publicly tried, but the evidence was overwhelming. Diaries, eyewitness accounts, and physical remains sealed her fate. For the first time, the Blood Countess stood face to face with justice. Her reign of terror was finally over. Elizabeth was sentenced to life imprisonment, not in a prison, but within her own castle. A room was bricked shut, leaving only a small opening for food. She lived like this for 4 years, alone with her thoughts and the ghosts of her victims. Her once powerful voice was silenced, her body withered away in isolation. On August 21st, 1614, guards found her dead. No funeral was held, no statue erected. She vanished into the darkness she had created. Her cell remains a symbol, not just of her crimes, but of how evil can exist even behind the finest of noble doors. Centuries later, Elizabeth Báthory's name still echoes in horror. Some say she was framed for political reasons. Others call her the most prolific female serial killer in history. Her legend inspired Dracula, Gothic novels, and horror films. But behind the myth was a woman of privilege who turned power into cruelty, whether she bathed in blood or not. Her crimes were real and her victims many. Today, the ruins of Cactus Castle stand in silence, but beneath them lie centuries of suffering, and the memory of the Blood Countess, who turned beauty into blood and royalty into terror.